Hello again, everybody, and welcome to my channel, The Gentleman Reviewer. So lately, I've been trying to review a lot more inks. I really like fountain pens, as I think you're well aware so far in the channel, and I want to expand a little bit in what I'm reviewing in the fountain pen world, rather than just focusing on the pens. You know, the ink is really what the pen, I mean, that's what you get to see the performance of the pen with, and it's just cool to find an interesting colored ink. Try something new, you know, get a unique color out there, get an ink that does something cool like shimmer or sheen and all of that fun jazz. And I think it really just makes your writing stand out, especially if you're going to use an ink that, like what I'm reviewing today, which is the Krishna Goldfish Gold. So recently I was at my local stationery store. It's really the only one that I can find here in Denver. It's called Meininger's. It's on about, I think it's Broadway and 7th, somewhere around there. So if you're in the area, check it out. See if Patty's there. She can definitely help you out with fountain pen ink or just anything fountain pen or pen related. She's back at one of the main counters and super helpful. So recently I was there getting some ink samples. I had posted on one of the groups that I'm a part of on Facebook called Colorado Pen Posse, asking for like where people get some ink samples. It's actually where someone on there gave me, I think it was about 30 ink samples of stuff that they had bought before and used a bit of. So it has about this much left in it, for example. And so I'm able to use that for maybe 1.5 fills on a fountain pen. And I've got, like I said, about 30 inks to try. But Patty had commented on the post saying that Blackstone inks are trying to get a little bit more noticeability and get out there a little bit more, and she was willing to do some samples of them. So while I was there getting it filled up, she was working on the Blackstone ink and I was talking about some other inks. She mentioned that Krishna has 3 or 4 inks that are actually going out of stock, and they had, I think it was all of them but one in stock or some on the way. And Goldfish Gold is one of those ones that's going out of stock. I guess they're not able to get the minerals they need to make it anymore. And so she's like, you can get it in a sample if you want to give it a shot. It's like, well, if it's going out of stock, I better get it and do a review fairly quickly. So that's exactly what I'm doing. I also bought another one that's going out of stock. I think it's called W3. I'd have to go check the box because I'm forgetting off the top of my head. But like I said, it's going out of stock, so if you have the opportunity, pick it up while you can, especially if you like reddish orangish ink with a bit of a gold shimmer. So another thing that I got, especially for reviewing fountain pen inks, is this Goulet Pens notebook sampler. So these have some paper in them that's a bit more desirable in the fountain pen world, just because it's better made and better suited for use with water-based inks. So as many of us know, if you use a fountain pen, especially some of the wetter inks like Diamine, Krishna kind of did this because it's a bit of a wetter ink. It's going to suck up the ink really quickly and feather. So if you were to put a drop of water on like copy paper or something like that, just going to soak it up. It's not really going to sit there, and you'll just have a splotchy paper with something that you can easily tear a hole in. With these, I've noticed, like the Rhodia dot pad, for example, when I put water droplets on here, it just sits. It doesn't really soak in pretty much at all. I had water sitting on here for a good couple minutes, and you know, it didn't soak through the paper at all, and it was still just kind of sitting there. So some of the inks, or some of the papers that I use this ink on, the Clairefontaine notebook. This is 90 GSM paper. I was surprised at how smooth it is. But you can see the Clairefontaine Krishna Goldfish Gold. You can see a bit of the shimmer when I move the paper around on this with this ink. So it's really got that nice reddish, pink, orange, something along those lines, with a bit of gold sheen. It really does look like goldfish skin. So as far as the name goes, this is a perfect name for this ink, and it's just great. So it really looks like a goldfish under the light. So that's the Clairefontaine notebook. This is the Nemesine Maruman. This one, I don't know what GSM the paper is, but yet again, you can see a bit of that golden sheen with the ink on the paper. The Nemesine B7, I guess, is what this one's called. So again, really smooth paper, really great for fountain pen use. Next, we've got the Apica. This is the CD5. I was surprised with this one. It feels a lot, the cover kind of makes it feel really cheap, but It's got really good quality paper in there, and again, you can really see that sheen in the light with that paper. This is one that I actually really enjoyed, the Rhodia number 12. The paper on this is just so exceptionally smooth, and writing with a fountain pen on it was just wonderful. So I really enjoyed that. And you can't really see the sheen, but the paper is also a bit of a yellow tinge to it. You can kind of see the sheen there a little bit. Next, we have the Traveler's Company notebook. I've seen these come up a bit on some other blogs, especially when they put the Traveler's Notebook all together with all the different pieces. It just looks really cool, and I wanted to try this paper for a while, so it's nice to actually give it a shot. Don't see a lot of the sheen, but you definitely get a little bit of it. And one that I was really excited about, because I'd never used this paper before, is the Goulet Pens Notebook with Tomoe River paper. Exceptionally smooth. You don't get a lot of sheen though with this paper, unfortunately. So lastly, this pack does come with a Rhodia dot pad. It's just the smaller version of this one right here, so I haven't even bothered with that. I'll use it for something else. Just for good measure, I did finally invest in a Leuchtturm 1917. Never used one before, but let's see if I can get this in there pretty well. Not a lot of sheen, which I was kind of disappointed by for such a good quality paper. I think this is 80 GSM, but it's really smooth. I'll end up reviewing it just for good measure, but it's going to be my next bullet journal for my blog. So, getting into the actual ink. For testing purposes, I put it in a Pilot Metropolitan with a fine nib. This is actually one of my favorite fountain pens. It writes consistently well and just works well. It was able to put a lot of ink down on the paper at one time. The ink is pretty wet and flows through the nib pretty well, actually. So, this is also one I like using stuff like this, or the Lamy Safari, or like a TWSBI Eco, because it's something that many people in the fountain pen community have, and something that they're going to be able to relate to. So, like I said, this is the Rhodia dot pad, which has 80 GSM paper and a Pilot Metropolitan with fine nib. The dry time on this ink was actually fairly long at 10 to 12 seconds, not the longest I've seen, but 10 seconds I actually noticed it did pretty well, and even on the 12-second mark, the writing didn't smear, but the little scribble I did smeared. The sheen on this paper is actually, you can see it in there a little bit better. Like I said, I don't know how much you can see on camera, but you got a lot of golden hints in there. It's like gold dust has been speckled through it. It's not waterproof at all, so you can see right about there where I placed the water droplets, and it's almost all gone. So it's really not, it's not archival, it's not intended to be, so it's not like it's not living up to something that's advertised as. But I actually put the droplets of water on some of these points that you can see, let it sit for a couple minutes, and then wiped it off with a paper towel, and that's where all of that smearing came from. So I was actually surprised at how much smearing it had. It didn't get a lot of chance to touch the water, but it didn't stand up to it at all. So just for good measure and to get a lot of ink down on the paper, I like using a dip pen and a calligraphy pen that I just have lying around. The glass pen is one that I purchased a while ago, and the calligraphy pen, my wife's had it for a while, so I just use it for these. I really like the sheen that you can see on that right there. It just looks cool, and I wish there was a lot more of it. Maybe it's because I used a fine nib, but I also noticed down here you really don't get that sheen except for on the very, very edges, and I was actually kind of disappointed by that. Overall, the ink though did perform fairly well across the board on a variety of different papers. It didn't do too poorly on cheap paper. You definitely don't get the sheen on the cheaper paper. So like copy paper, it's not going to do as well. It didn't, like I said, it didn't seem to feather as much, so that's always nice. But it's really going to perform a lot better on that nicer paper, as will any fountain pen ink, or any ink for that matter. One thing that I am a bit worried about, you can see just in this vial, it really stained the sides of the plastic, and I'm kind of worried that it did that to my converter. So I mean, you can see, if I can get it to focus up here, you can see it's kind of crusting around the edges of the pen or the nib, and especially when I get to the feed. Oh, it's not focusing. There we go. Especially when I get to the feed, you can see that sheen around there. And so I'm going to be kind of worried about cleaning that out. So that's going to be tough. And you can see on the converter, it's really dirty in there. So I'll try to remember to post an update, at least on the blog or in the comments or in the description below, about what it was like cleaning this ink out. I'm not going to update the video or anything like that. So we will see how that goes. I'm a little worried about that, honestly, so we will see. So overall, I think this ink is really unique and does a great job at mimicking what it's supposed to mimic, which is the Goldfish's scales. Especially when you get that really nice gold sheen on the edges. It performs pretty well across the board on a variety of different papers. Doesn't seem to feather too much or bleed through too much. Like any fountain pen ink, it's going to have some problems on the cheaper paper just because it's water-based, whereas a lot of the pens you're using on it are oil-based. But like I said, pick it up while you can. It's not going to be able to be made anymore. So if you have the opportunity, give it a shot. Thanks again for watching, and as always, please hit the like button and give me a thumbs up, and then please hit the subscribe button as well. I'll see you all later.